And now we are thrilled to welcome two powerful women who live and breathe our values every single day to the virtual stage, Connie Britton and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Connie is a 4-time Emmy and Golden Globe nominated actress who is dedicated to progressive causes, including climate justice and voting rights. She is an advisory board member of our close partner, Climate Power. And in 2014, she was appointed as a Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations Development Program. In this role, she raises awareness of the need to eradicate poverty and empower women, and we're delighted that she's with us today. We're also so glad that even in the middle of this critical fight for climate, jobs, justice, and so much more, we are joined by Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She is widely acknowledged as the most effective speaker in modern history and is the speaker most committed to climate action and environmental justice by far. Speaker Pelosi has proven time and again that she takes on the tough fights and she wins for the children and for the planet, as she says so well. She's been a champion for the environment since her earliest days, earning a 94% LCV lifetime score on our National Environmental Scorecard. As Speaker, she created the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, passed the largest investment in clean energy in history, and has done so much more. Now, she is leading the charge to make the transformational climate and clean energy investments that science and justice require by passing the Build Back Better Act and meeting the moment on this code red for humanity. We so appreciate these two incredible women joining us today, and we're looking forward to their conversation. But Connie, before the speaker joins us, I know our audience would love to hear a little bit about you. So can you talk for just a minute about what got you involved in politics and advocacy to begin with?
Sure. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here and to be here on this very special, momentous day where it feels like we really are all gathering toward this one goal, toward this one end, the Build Back Better Act. And so anyway, it's thrilling for me to be here. And you know, in terms of my journey of trying to become an advocate, it just started for me very young. And I was in college and I was, for the first time in my life, learning about the world and realized that more than anything, I just wanted to be able to help right the wrongs and fight injustice. And, you know, I was very idealistic, of course. And then it came to me that if I did the thing that I love, which is acting and doing this kind of storytelling, I could actually parlay that into giving voice to people who have no voice in the world. And so my goal throughout my career and throughout my life really has been to do that. And I often look at my career as just a means to an end for a much bigger picture, much more global picture in the world.
Thank you so much for that. That's really inspiring. I actually understand that we went to the same college, so we'll have to compare notes more about that.
We did?
Yes. I believe we both went to Dartmouth.
We sure did.
So can you, yes. So can you, I think we have another minute for me to squeeze in one more question before the speaker arrives. Can you talk a little bit about why addressing the climate crisis and fighting for environmental justice in particular are so important to you?
Well, you know, clearly there's a great urgency for all of us around these issues. And most specifically for me, you know, my focus has really become on women's empowerment and poverty eradication around the world. And when you look at those issues, it is stunning to realize how inextricably linked they are to climate crisis and to the environment. You cannot look at poverty in the world. You cannot look at women's rights and women's justice in the world without looking at climate change and conservation. And so as soon as I realized that, it was like a light bulb went off, and I thought, this is the fight. This is the fight toward poverty eradication and toward empowering women. And that just gives me even sort of deeper yearning to make all of that happen. And there's the speaker.
Thank you so much. And can you, I think we have time for one quick, I think we have the speaker. So I will save another question for another time, but Connie, thank you so much.
I want to hear your question to Connie.
Okay. Speaker Pelosi, hello.
How are you?
You're the best. Well, I was going to ask Connie and then we'll turn it to her, but thank you so much for joining us. Such a tireless champion for climate, jobs, justice, and so much more. We can't wait to hear your conversation. But the question I was going to ask Connie is, what gives you hope in these very challenging and difficult times, and how do you keep fighting?
These are challenging and difficult times. What gives me hope is that I see the difference that we are able to make when we unify and when we come together and we use our voices. We have seen proof of that. And you know, when times get tough and we start to realize the enormity of these battles that we're fighting, I always go back to that. I always go back to knowing that when we come together and we fight for a common and decent cause, we can prevail. And we have proof of that historically. So that's what gives me hope and keeps me going.
Well, I think there's no better evidence of that than the speaker herself. So I see we are all in red for this Code Red for Humanity. Thank you both for your incredible leadership and can't wait for your conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for those lovely questions. It was great to talk to you. Should we start now?
Whenever.
Are you ready, Speaker Pelosi? Thank you. First of all, it's so wonderful to see you.
It's great to see you. Tiernan and Connie, oh my goodness, two of my favorite people.
Well, I can certainly say the same. So this is a love fest today, a red love fest.
A red love fest, and that's probably why everything looks red over here. I don't know how it's coming across there, but as I look at our screen here, the whole room looks red. And so, in any event, let's chalk it up to full participation in the code red, unfortunately.
Yes, I know. It's sort of, I don't like that this is the reason that we're all wearing red, and yet I like that we have this unifying piece that's going to pull us together and help us to solve these issues in our world. And I just wanted to start by saying, again, thank you so much for all you're doing. And, you know, you just have an admiring nation who is filled with gratitude toward you. And I hope you feel that every day. And, you know, most specifically, you really are the most pro-environment Speaker of the House we've ever had. And I would love to know what it is that inspired you and motivated you to take that stance and to be so stalwart in continuing on the fight no matter what.
Well, thank you, Connie, for your question, for your leadership and participation. I'm so proud of you being a Goodwill Ambassador of the United Nations and Development Program, and to be here with you. Connie knows our family are fans of hers, music-wise, acting-wise, and now values-wise as well, all along. And Tiernan, thank you for the invitation from the League of Conservation Voters for being with you today. I'm so glad to be with my colleague, Lisa Blunt-Rochester, who will be presenting, as well as your chairman, Carol Bronner, who we've worked together for a very long time. Before I answer your question, though, I just want to put this in time. In the last 24 hours, I've had 3 heads of state in my office. I had the president of Angola, the prime minister of Great Britain, and the prime minister of Australia. In every conversation, climate was the dominant issue. Different way for Angola and again, the other 2 countries. I just came back from the UK for the G7 heads of parliament meeting. And as always, for the past series of meetings, it's been very much focused on the climate issue, because the UK is getting ready for Glasgow So there was a lot of that conversation, both when I visited Boris Johnson there and when he came here this morning, but also just among everyone else. Unfortunately, in some things you can be too early or you can be too late. We've been too late for a very long time. But I can't even begin to tell you, both the Prime Minister of Australia and of UK were consumed in the climate crisis. Such the one from Australia was saying, we not only are going to meet our goals from Paris, we're going to beat them. We not only say we're going to do something, we have a plan to get it done when it comes to everything but the environment, as the subject is right now. So in the course of this weekend at the UK, talking to the G7 other, well, they call them presidents of assembly or speaker, whatever they call them in their country, it was important to note that what was emphasized about the US was that, because I keep saying we got to do better than Paris, and they're saying, well, we can do better than Paris if people would live up to their obligations from Paris. Meet your emission goals with a plan for, total, and put up money to help other countries meet theirs. It's very clear from everybody we spoke to, the recipient nations or the G7 donor nations, that the US had to do much more in that regard to help with the technology, because without the technology, it's very hard to do for those countries. So I just wanted to give you that hopeful, because I'm telling you, it's very unusual for us to have a meeting, bipartisan meeting, with so many, with the heads of state just proclaiming this is absolute, we must do it, we must get it done. And they were talking about how they honored Kyoto and this and that, and we didn't. I mean, they didn't say that, but we didn't. So in any case, in terms of doing the best we could. So this is a big issue for me. When I became speaker, it was my flagship issue, the climate crisis. I formed a select committee. We passed legislation in the House, couldn't pass it in the Senate, but we did get good things done with President Bush with an energy bill that raised the standards, did good things, investing in renewables and the rest. It was a good energy bill. It wasn't a climate bill. They're related, but we needed the climate bill. We couldn't get that passed the Senate because you need 60 votes. Why? For the children. This is for the children. It's always for the children. It's about their health, the air they breathe, the water they drink. Children, especially in environmental injustice areas, are so affected by, they develop pre-existing conditions, even though they have one to start, because of the quality of the air they breathe, and that's a health issue. It's a jobs issue, jobs, to be preeminent in the green technologies, for all of us to be competitive, but nonetheless, to make sure that we have the technology that we need, and if we can sell it abroad, that'd be good too. It's just a national security issue. We've had our national security experts come in and tell us, but the rising sea levels, encroachment of deserts, drying up of rivers, affecting the thermal management of the planet, all the kinds of things that you all know about. Well, they will cause migrations, competition for resources and habitat, and that is not a good thing. So health, jobs, security, and of course, a moral issue. I believe that this is God's creation, and we have a moral responsibility to be good stewards. But even if you don't share that religious view, we all share the view that we have a responsibility to future generations to hand over the planet in a responsible way for the children, for the children. Their health, and currently the environmental justice that is implicit in this. And then when I was speaker, we were working on this. And at that time, 2009, when we were writing our bill, the Secretary General of the UN came to my office and he said, we must act now. It's going to be too late. Now that was 2009. It's 12 years later. So if it was too late then, we are in code red for humanity. But again, I'm from San Francisco. We are the hotbed of environmental activism, and for a long time, and then they're bipartisan, not here, but there. And in any event, it's just the most important issue in every possible way for the children.
Well, and I have two questions from that. One is for the children. What can we say? What can we say to children who are concerned by this recent shocking information about this Code Red for Humanity? What can we tell the children? That's one question I have for you. And the other one is going back to what you brought up initially about based on your conversations that you just had. What do we in America need to do? You said America needs to do more. What does that look like? How can we help?
Well, fortunately, we have President Biden in the White House. We have been the victims of denial of science, for whatever reasons, people just not wanting to ever vote for anything that would be good for the planet, thinking large. Long time, they didn't even admit that anything was happening. Recently, they admit something may be happening, but it's probably cyclical, and that happens with planets. And then some have come to the point, well, maybe we can do something about it, and maybe human behavior has something to do about it. But the children are more alert. I think most children in America are either better informed, or in the case of our members here, maybe they're just in denial, but our children understand. They communicate with each other. They organize around this issue. It's the most amazing thing to see in our country. I see in my own family, children, grandchildren, the priority that the environment has, but the threat of harming the planet. And this IPCC report, the Code Red for Humanity, that it declared, is something that you don't want to be a fearmonger and you don't want to scare children, but the fact is the future belongs to them. The time will go by. 10 years, we can meet our goals for 10 to 2030, 2050, 100%. For these children, they'll just be middle-aged by 2050. And it's, when the report found that over, in other words, when our colleagues say it's cyclical, well, how do you explain that over the past half century, global surface temperatures rose faster than any 50-year period over the last 2,000 years? And that the past 5 years have been the hottest on record in more than 170 years. And that the recent rate of sea level rise has tripled compared with 1901 to 1971, sea level rising. So many of what we talked about with some of the heads of state and heads of parliament was what was happening some island republics. I had the opportunity when I was in Spain for the COP in Madrid, right before COP. They invited me to speak at a vulnerables conference. Vulnerable people, the injustice of it all, and vulnerable nations. Just sea levels rising. And the Prime Minister this morning from Australia said that he already has had to provide habitat a couple of times from the impact of the climate change already. So for the children, it's think globally, act locally, act personally, and they do. One exciting thing, Connie, I was in Seattle, and it was the Science Day. It was about 3 years ago or so, before COVID then. And before I spoke, the person on the agenda before me was in kindergarten. Never follow somebody, what did they say? Never follow a child, but kindergarten. And she had started a campaign to stop the use of plastic straws. And she had surrounding her all of her classmates, and some might have been in first grade now, who were all involved in that because of what it did to the animals in the ocean, in addition to just polluting the ocean. Kindergarten.
Amazing.
And I mean, they understood. They knew it was wrong.
Well, as I was listening to you, I was thinking we actually need to let them become our leaders, because I think you're right. I think that they do have a more vivid, clear understanding and a sense of the urgency of it, you know. And so they do. I think we have a lot to learn from them, because they're being born into this and they will find ways to navigate it.
You're absolutely right. And they're not in science denial. I mean,
right.
That's really just the most amazing thing, whether we're talking COVID or climate, science denial is not a good thing. And if you deny the science and you deny the governance that requires certain standards and regulations and the rest, you have a double whammy. No science, no governance, 2 no's do not make a yes. But kids know that. They cut through all of that. And all we want to talk to them is about the possibilities without necessarily going into how backward in thinking some of the people in Congress are about all of this.
Right.
It might slip in. It might slip in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, as we look ahead to the Build Better Act, and we really hope we need that to go forward. That is really sort of where our focus is today. And you've been quoted as saying our diversity is our strength and our unity is our power. Isn't that right?
Yeah, you got it.
Which I love so much. So thinking about that, for me, when I think about that, I'm wondering, how can we then apply that to getting this Build Better Act passed? What can we do to help? What do we need our people in Congress to do to help? What can that look like for us? Let's think action points right now.
Thank you, Connie. Well, your question is very astute, because in Congress, there are 2 forces at work: the inside maneuvering that you do to establish priorities, write a bill, get the votes, all that. But nothing good, the best things don't happen without the outside mobilization. Inside maneuvering, outside mobilization. The League of Conservation Voters has been so fabulous in mobilizing support. Right now you can't see, but Abraham Lincoln right behind me, he says, public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. But for public sentiment to weigh in, people have to know. They have to know what is at stake, what the timing is of it, how to weigh in. Nothing is more eloquent to a member of Congress than the voice of his or her own constituents, whether it's House or Senate, their own constituents. So the more people will say, this is an important issue in your district, in your state, if it's a senator, the better off we will be in terms of getting the best possible legislation. We're very blessed to have President Biden as president. When I talked to him about this, he said, you don't have to talk to me about climate. I was the first member of Congress to introduce legislation, and maybe he meant the first senator, but that's what he said. And he takes great pride in that. Decades ago, introduced legislation about the climate crisis. And so he feels some ownership of this issue. And when people start to pull things apart from the bill, which has the climate initiatives in it, he says, I wrote that. I campaigned on that. This is part of my vision. And so this infrastructure bill that they passed, I say has the good and the missing. Some say bad, but I'll just say the good and the missing. And what's missing in it is the climate crisis. And so that was a good bipartisan bill. Okay, it has some things we need to do. Could have been written 100 years ago, but that's okay. We need some of those things. But right now, we need to do the reconciliation, which just complements the other bill by facing the climate crisis and doing what is necessary, whether it's policy, whether it's taxation, whether it's appropriation, whatever it is, to use every tool at our disposal legislatively that the parliamentarian will allow to get things done. We got a running start at the end of last year in December. Our House Democrats had in the bill, working with the Senate Democrats, in the bill, which we persuade, you're with the other side of the aisle and somebody else in the White House, they want something, you get something. And so we got what to date was the biggest climate bill that has passed and been signed into law. Now we go well beyond that in this legislation. So we depend on outside leaders, trusted voices. League of Conservation Voters has been that trusted voice for so many years. So many people may be watching now. Just tell a friend, call your legislator, call a friend, let's build a drumbeat so that they're hearing that we know this is in the bill. We want this to be passed and in the strongest possible way, because it's about our children's health, their families' jobs, the security of the world, and a moral responsibility to future generations. Very important.
Very important. And I
for
know
you to lend your celebrity, that means so much, because we try to attract support. You do. You are in the attraction business. We both are, except you successfully. And so people know so much more. When anything is in the popular culture, it's magnified, amplified so much. So thank you for making your celebrity and your knowledge and your values. It's not just, oh, I'm showing up. It's what you bring to it. It makes a big difference. I'm thrilled to be with you. I hope to see you in person sometime soon.
Thank you so much. Well, it's funny when you say that, I think to myself, I just want to speak common sense to people. My whole goal is always just to help people see the thing that makes the most sense, and so this is all so helpful to me, and I know to everyone else here today, just so we can really be clear about what the issues are and how we impart that and parlay that to the people in our worlds, as you say, think globally, act locally, and I think that's certainly my takeaway today. And I am so deeply grateful to you, as I know we all are, for truly being our leader and our guide in this and in so many issues. And I feel so vitalized and inspired by your wisdom today. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, I accept every compliment on behalf of the House Democrats, because they're the ones with the courage. It doesn't take courage for me. But again, we unify, put some of our differences aside, we unify, and they have the courage to do that. So I thank you back.
Please convey our gratitude to them as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.